Hi, I'm Helen Sword, and this is Helen's Word. Welcome to day 5 of this 5-day stay-home writing retreat. The finish line is in sight now, just a few more hours of writing to go. And today we come to arguably the most important element in our writing space, the emotional dimension of writing. Our focus today will be on finding ways of bringing positive emotions into our writing practice, or of amplifying whatever pleasure is already there. So grab your notebook and pen and let's get ready to write. A few years ago, I published a book called Air and Light and Time and Space, How Successful Academics Write, which you can find in the bookshop on my website at helensword.com. And by the way, each time you buy a book on Amazon via the link on my website, I get a small commission of around 2.5% of the purchase price, which in turn helps defray the cost of keeping the resources on my website free for all writers. Now, as part of my research for that book, I interviewed 100 successful academic writers about their writing practice. And one of my most striking findings was that there is a strong and compelling link between success in writing, however you want to define success, and pleasure in writing, which isn't actually all that surprising when you think about it. In a book called Positivity, which is also in the bookshop on my website, behavioral psychologist Barbara Fredrickson talks about what she calls the broaden and build cycle of positive emotions. To put it simply, research has shown that if you take on a challenging task while you're in a positive frame of mind, even if you don't particularly enjoy the task itself, you're more likely to work harder at it, get better at it, and therefore feel good about your achievements than if you started out in a negative or neutral mood, which in turn means that the next time you take on that same challenging task, you're likely to feel more positive about it from the outset. And so you'll continue to work harder and get better. And with each iteration of this cycle, your competence and confidence broaden and build until at some stage the task itself becomes genuinely enjoyable in its own right. Because even though it's hard, you know that you're good at it. And in fact, the challenge of doing it well becomes part of the enjoyment. Many of the successful academic writers I interviewed told me that, yes, writing is hard for them. Yes, writing is challenging, but they get pleasure from writing well precisely because of that challenge. Much in the same way that a sculptor gets pleasure from the hard physical labor of coaxing a beautiful sculpture out of a solid block of stone. But for some writers, that broaden and build cycle of positive emotions can become a negative spiral instead. For example, if you come to your writing in a really grumpy or anxious frame of mind for whatever reason, whether because your supervisor criticized your last draft or because you're filled with existential anxiety about the state of the world, either way, your writing isn't very likely to go well that day, which in turn will confirm your lack of self-confidence in your own abilities. And so each day, you give less time and energy to your writing because you find it so painful, and the broaden and build cycle inverts and becomes a sort of devil's circle of downward spiraling emotions until eventually you can't bear to write at all. If that describes you, or if you've ever experienced that kind of negative spiral, one way to reverse the trajectory is to inject your writing practice with as much pleasure as you can. Go for a walk before you start writing, or spend some time in the garden, or put on some music that you love. Light a candle, call a friend, sit with your cat on your lap. Then As you face the writing itself, try to find something about it, about that process, anything that you feel excited about. Or you could start with some easy task that will bring you a sense of progress and achievement, like cleaning up a few footnotes. Whatever it takes to put you back on that path to pleasurable writing, even if you have to fake it till you make it. So today, on your final day of this 5-day writing retreat, after you've reviewed your time goals for the day, content goal, and your social, physical, aesthetic, and cognitive or metacognitive goals, I'd like you to add an emotion goal. How are you going to bring pleasure and enjoyment into your writing practice today? For some of you, that pleasure is already there, so pay attention to it, savor it. Blow gently on the coals and give that soft glow of enjoyment some extra oxygen. But if pleasurable writing sounds like an oxymoron to you, you may need to grub around in the mud for a while before you bring up that one little jewel of enjoyment that you can rinse off and hold up to the light. Or you may even want to forget about finding pleasure in the writing and just do what you can to pad your day with other pleasures. Wrap pleasure around the writing process. Thanks for showing up to write, and I'll see you later today.